In the NextGen Homeowners Report, 6 in 10 said they trusted AI more than they trust loan officers. That is you. On this episode of the Loan Officer Mastermind, Kristin Messerli, the co-founder of First Home IQ, and the person who's really researched what the different generations of home buyers think for the last number of years, brings her advice in her framework around how to actually make this work, and then also will help you with some of the new tools that First Home IQ has rolled out that are free for you to check out if you go to firsthomeiq.com/. Enjoy this episode. I hope you do as much as I did. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Loan Officer Mastermind. I am Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon, and we are so excited that you are listening today. I am joined, as always, by my fabulous co-hosts. Let me bring on Deborah Byrd from Plug and Play SM first. Deborah, what's up?
You know, it's midway through August. It's a great day. It's a great Friday and Financial Awareness Day.
I love that. I love that. All right. Mr. Dave Savage from Trust Engine. How are you, sir? 10
I'm
years we've been doing this. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, no, it's good to be here. I can't believe I didn't realize it was Financial Awareness Day. Like
If
perfect
you
timing.
follow me on social, you would know,
I do
Dave.
follow you on social, but I missed that memo. This week I was at the Housing Wire AI Summit to really get a firsthand view of not only where the industry's at, but where the puck is going. So I'm super excited to have Kristin Messerli as our special guest, talk about helping people be more financially aware, how to use AI, and it's going to be a great conversation. Let's go, Todd.
Yeah, I'm excited to have Kristin as well. I think you all know Kristin Messerli by now, but she's the executive director and co-founder of First Home IQ, the biggest platform that we know of out there to help loan officers become the go-to person for financial literacy for the youth of America and for helping people really get on the path to home ownership. First-time home buyer are a passion of hers, and just people outside of that. I don't think I've met too many people who actually care as much about people in general as Kristin does. So I think it's exciting to have her on here. I know Kristin just wrote an article that you can find on LinkedIn and Housing Wire on how AI is now more of a trusted source than loan officers. So kind of bring us up to speed. Where do you want to start today?
So maybe a good place to start would be with the premise of that article of where we are with, the way buyers are approaching or consumers are approaching homeownership education. And then that will lead into why we kind of relaunched First Home IQ. And I'd love to share some components of that as well.
That sounds great. Yeah, I think between, you writing that article and Dave hanging out at the AI Summit, I think it's a perfect time for us to hear what you found.
Yeah, so I spent the last week really focused on thinking through kind of how we talk about AI in the role of financial literacy and homeownership. And it's been something that, of course, we've been talking about and researching for quite a while. In our latest NextGen Homebuyer report, we found that half said that they trusted loan officers or they trusted AI as much or more than loan officers or housing professionals to make a personalized home buying plan. And I think that you guys have talked plenty about why that's not the case, but I feel like there's still this fear around what does that mean for the industry itself. And I started following what AI was doing in other industries, specifically around healthcare, looking at how it was just completely revolutionizing and transforming how people were approaching healthcare. And my own personal experience was the same around that. And I saw that there's so much confusion. And you think about how much confusion home buyers have today about what the right decision is and who's the right person to talk to. And am I going to get sold to an AI, the place that allows people to that bridges that gap. So for us, as our mission with First Home IQ, it is to close the homeownership gap, help people get into homes that want to be in homes sooner. And we do that through education and through trusted professionals. An actual role in helping to bridge that gap across education and leading into a conversation with a trusted professional. So that's kind of like broad, high level where I started in thinking about this, and then why we've developed some tools that help to, guide people through building trust, getting some self-empowerment as they go into that process.
When I hear you share all that, and I think of some of the conversations that I had at the AI Summit, and just my own personal experience, like everybody is, well, not everybody, but I think you have to assume if you're a loan officer, everybody's using AI, whether or not they are or are not. If you make that assumption, you're going to be a whole lot better off at connecting with people who are using it. And you're going to also be helping people who aren't. I do think we're at this point where today's loan officer needs to be incredibly expert at getting people from I'm renting, I'm confused, to I'm clear, and I'm confident. And so, Kristin, like, because to do that and to be that loan officer guide, there's a technology part of that in AI, but there's also just a content part of that and how you're giving people content. What are some of your thoughts on just execution for loan officers? Like, take that concept and those ideas and then execute.
Yeah, I think we have to assume that, yes, consumers are using AI, but we have to assume the distrust right away, even if you're the most trusting person in the world. And I mean, I went through this, like, there are people like yourself that I would trust with my life. And yet when you're telling me, hey, maybe you should think about buying a home, I was like, yeah, but you're paid to tell me that, like, it's just like, we're in an industry that drives people into home ownership, and I want to make sure I'm making the best decision. 6 in 10 in our research show that they feel the housing system is going to work against them. So there's just, I think that starting with that assumption helps us understand why the content game is so important. Why, giving people tools and resources that are going to help support them is so important. So yeah, when it comes to content, I mean, I think that there's a lot of really great content creators out there that you can follow and share. And of course, Deborah Byrd is at the top of that list of how she's supporting people with that. Consumers they have unlimited access to information and education, but it's about how you're showing up in your community, whether it be online or in person, as someone who is a trusted guide through that information. And so that's why, with First Home IQ, we've launched a tool that we have a free tool for anybody at learn.firsthomeiq.com. People can go through and get the education step by step and bite-sized amounts and play around with numbers from renting versus owning and affordability all the way through the process of buying a home, but in a simple way. But ideally, they're doing that with an ambassador, and all of our ambassadors have their own page as well. That at every step of the way, it's like, do you want to have your ambassador review your plan? You can send numbers and questions to your ambassador through that tool. And that's what we want to see ultimately, whether it be through the ambassador pages or through your social media channels or through your church or your kids' schools, whatever that be, that you are showing up in a way that is building trust and not just providing information, but providing that kind of guidance.
I know we use the term like be the guide, like talk about some of the principles and philosophies of building trust so everyone can just get a framework. In fact, in your Housing Wire article, you laid out a 3-step framework, which I thought was brilliant. And I actually added it to Claude and said, hey, remind me of this framework so that, whether I'm creating content or whether I'm connecting with people, I'm applying it. You mind sharing that for everyone?
Yeah, this came up as we were creating this tool. I started my career as a social worker, for those that don't know, and there's a framework that's really important for anyone working with traumatized individuals or highly distrusting individuals, and it's called trauma-informed care. And there's 5 kind of components to that. It's safety, so you want to make sure you create a safe space for people. It's transparency, it is choice, and collaboration, and then ultimately empowerment. And it just fits so perfectly onto how loan officers can be showing up with their clients and need to with today's generation. Creating that safe space is number one. Is this a place where people feel comfortable reaching out to you? So many people are afraid they're going to be laughed at. Actually, I have a great example. I have a friend just a couple days ago that wants to buy a home, has plenty of money saved up, has a good, stable job, all of these things. And he was like, I was like, let me connect you to a loan officer. He was like, no, I don't want to do that yet. And he was like, I just want to be sure about how much I can actually afford. And I'm like, that is their job. But anyway, I gave him the tool and he played around with some of those numbers. And then I was like, I'll connect you with someone that is not going to sell you, just will be there to talk you through that. And he's like, okay, yeah, I can do that. But it was it was a perfect example of that needing to feel safe in order to reach out. And so you think about what are all the ways that you can create a judgment-free zone through your content, your brand, your tools that you're providing, your education. The other one I want to call out though is collaboration. And this was very clear in my healthcare journey of how much AI was helping me with collaboration, because in the past we had to show up as consumers or patients, as someone who is just, I have to jump into this and say, okay, I trust you to help me, make a smart decision. And now I can go to AI and have a lot of smart questions, look at all the data that's my personal data and my personal symptoms or my personal financial situation, and then show up and say, okay, I'm here to collaborate. And I think the more that the loan officer is showing up with that expectation of being that collaborator, you're going to have buyers that are really excited to work with you.
When I heard you tell that story, and I think, one of the questions I was asking people at the event, like, what's the loan officer of 2030 look like? And it was unanimous that they're great leaders of people and agents. Like they are leading the combination of both. And when I heard that story, it's like it takes a village, to get people to take action and to feel confident. And part of that village now is an AI agent. And the question I think every loan officer should be asking is, do you want to be in the loop from an AI perspective? Do you want to bring leadership so that consumer is really using AI in the most effective way? Especially first-time home buyers. Buying your first home there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of ignorance, there's a lot of concerns. And if you can be the loan officer that gets people to go from, I know I can, I just want to make sure I get it right, and you were able to do that. I mean, if you could do that at scale, you could really, I think, not only close a lot more loans and help realtors sell more homes, but I think the industry could increase the market share of first-time home buyers.
That was the headline we put in the press release with Housing Wire talking about our announcement, is just expanding the ability to expand your pool of home buyers through this pathway. If you build trust and think about all the people that are not my friend that I'm saying, hey, check out these tools, and encouraging them to feel safe enough to reach out to a loan officer. There's tons of those people out there that I think affordability is a huge challenge. Interest rates have created a real challenge, but there's a real opportunity there with those who are distrusting, overwhelmed, confused, and are just kind of stuck right now that can be unlocked through this path. Deborah, I'm curious your thoughts on all of this, since you are a big part of, helping people lead with education and build that trusted brand.
My first thought was at the very beginning when you were talking about how they use AI. I was curious if you had any numbers around if people are losing at time of contract. Like they did the work, they converted at time of application, they gave them the plan, but now they have a loan estimate that they're taking a screenshot, they're putting it in Reddit, or they're putting it in AI and asking, is this a good deal? And then is it causing them to flip? The second part was when you said safety, transparency, choice, collaboration, my brain goes to, but how do we get in front of this group before they're already aware of the problem? So like before they go to chat, to see, am I home ready or not? Could we collaborate and create a safe environment around typical life events that trigger this, action to maybe buy their first home, which would be when your lease increases, perhaps marriage, career advancements. Like, do you guys have resources to help the ambassadors go into like HR rooms or wedding planners or pediatric offices to then collaborate on a transparent, still there's choice, it's safe, but it provides awareness before they even know that the problem exists?
Yeah, I do suspect that there's a huge drop off around I hear constantly of people talking about the ghosting problem and how they get all the way down the path and then they ghost. I think that is a problem around, building confidence early enough. And I think sometimes people may appear confident because they're using AI and, they're motivated or whatever, but then they move too quickly without building that confidence. But But that's something that I would like to do some more research on. We're about to do another big survey around the psychology of today's buyers. So something I'm going to dig into. But also I have heard from some real estate agents that this is a big problem with baby boomers, for them, like empty nesters. And so I don't think this is necessarily just a next gen issue. We're seeing it across different generations and possibly for different reasons. But I think everyone kind of has access to this information now. So, and then secondly, yes, we were actually built, First Home IQ was built around thinking about how can we give resources to people who want to build that trust around other life events or other, like, enter into people's lives and into community, so that we're not just getting the people that have already made that decision of, yeah, I want to buy a home. I mean, this is the thing about expanding the pool. We have to enter into their areas that they are already living and existing in, like work and school and, community organizations, churches, all of that, libraries, where you're going to be able to get exposure to them outside of just the, social media is another great channel for that. But yeah, we try to pull together as much as we can, whether it be playbooks, presentations, presentation library. We have a bunch of customizable social media graphics and lots more in our new website. It's teach.firsthomeiq.com. So that is all available for there's a lot of free resources in there. And then we have extra resources in there for our ambassadors as well. So yeah, encourage you guys. It's Learn, that's free for consumers, and then Teach, that is for housing professionals.
Hey, Kristin, you know what I think would be useful, and whether we do it right now or we do it within a few minutes, is show them how you've applied that framework. Like this is how we create safety. This is how we create transparency. And walk them through an ambassador page, because these new ambassador websites were really designed to do all of those things. Everything that she talked about, it ends up empowering the consumer to have confidence. And would you mind walking them through, and then maybe even as you're doing the demo of the content in the website, call out the principles? I would tell everybody, as you hear Kristin walk through this, be thinking about everything that a first-time home buyer needs to know and have confidence and clarity around, okay, I'm going to buy now, or I'm going to wait 6 months, or I'm going to wait 6 years. Would you mind doing that?
So if you go to firsthomeiq.com, you can see our new website. Click at the top, Learn or Teach, and that will take you to the Learn site or the Teach site. We do have a really cool little pack, of a welcome pack for anyone interested in the ambassador program. So you can put your email in there, and we'll send you podcasts, like a bunch of resources around building trust and some of the information that's available through First Home IQ. And then if you are interested in being an ambassador, you show up here on this map. The idea is that we are, again, our mission is around closing the homeownership gap, and we're doing that through education and trusted professionals. So looking at the ambassador page, that we built that around that mission and around those principles of first building safety all the way through collaboration and empowerment. So every ambassador page pulls in your headshot. It has encourages people to email you, have you review the plan. But up here at the top, Start My Plan, that's also on the Learn page. It just isn't tied to that trusted professional. So we want as many of these going through the plan as possible tied to the professional. And then this is where the psychology starts. We want to lock in, why are you doing this? So it's tied to their motivation. So that's, encouraging them. And then the big one is, what's worrying you most? And this is partly for the ambassador to have that information, and partly for you to get that off of your chest, basically. And it kind of opens your brain space to be able to think more clearly about this. So that's part of the psychology of the anxious consumer. So let's say, and I don't know if I can afford it. So this is where you start your plan, and as you go through your plan, it's saving it here. So it pulls up first the one that you said you are most concerned about. And for each of these modules, there's 6 kind of simple modules that have a quick education piece with one of our videos, and then it has a customizable calculator. And so you can play with those calculators, put in some information about what's a comfortable payment for you. use this, and then you can add in any questions that you have, and you save it to your plan, and it's saving up here at the top. And so then you can save and email your plan to yourself or to your ambassador. But as you go through all of those, it's saving them. And then it would also send you, as an ambassador, it would send this in an email that gives you information about what that person said in their plan, what questions they had, so that you can then respond. And as you go through this, you can think through down payment. You can also open the full calculator and put in more information like, okay, I want to focus on my monthly budget, look through some down payment options. And these are all just for the consumer to play around with their own numbers. It's, again, creating that sense of safety, transparency, choice, and collaboration all the way through that empowerment process. So it is not replacing a mortgage coach experience. It is not replacing, replacing some of your other tools, but it's giving the consumer, through a trusted nonprofit, it's giving them a space to play around. At the bottom of all of our ambassador pages, we also have a quiz that's our classic First Home IQ quiz that measures your understanding of buying your first home, and it educates you as you go through that process. So says, okay, I got that one right, and explains why. And then there's a first home guide too that kind of walks through everything that's in those modules in that plan, but in a written format, and has all of your information in there and your links to your First Home IQ quiz page and all of that.
From a trust building perspective, from being a coach and advisor to a consumer, you've got this non-profit, high trust place where they can, at their own pace, and not necessarily share it with you. So it's like they're workshopping this, and then they can share it with you. So it becomes a lead generating solution for you. It becomes a educational platform for you. It really just comes down to how many consumers can you get to go through this experience. And I would just, my coaching advice to every loan officer on this, every first time home buyer that you've ever talked to, you want to get into this experience. Like, it will accelerate trust and it will improve their connection to you. And then you want to start like, hey, can I get this to families in my database? Can I get this to teachers in my database? Can I get this to local organizations in my database? Because the more people you inspire and educate, the more people you're going to help with homeownership. I don't know, Todd and Deborah, any thoughts, questions so far?
Well, I mean, one thing I want to make sure we point out is, like I always think, like, who you're sitting there as a loan officer thinking, is this a good opportunity for me? And the answer is, yes, if you care about building your first-time home buyer business and educating the public out there to be a little more financially literate. Our ambassadors are people who are literally, some of them are brand new in their first year in the business. And then we've got people like Joe Soto and JJ Mazzo who are just, huge producers. So we've got the full gamut of people who are ambassadors. I'm going to text it today to realtors, and I'm going to text it to first-time home buyers who I've talked to who haven't bought a home yet. It's so easy for me to have a reason to create engagement. You have to put yourself in the path of opportunity, meaning you have to actually figure out, how do I bump into the people who are doing the thing that I want to do? And gosh, an easy way to do that is to get this in the hands of your real estate agents who are talking to first-time home buyers every day. And guess what? It's branded with you. It's got links in it. What do you think, Deborah?
Well, what sticks out to me is it's a great conversation bridge where I see a lot of times on social. And so it's all about, how are you creating the micro step, like the baby step that's safe enough that it's not too big of an ask too soon, where most are trying to get people to either schedule a buyer consultation call, which is very scary for many who don't feel ready, or it's like directly to the apply now link. And so my question to you all is, do you have different and smaller paths that people can take to learn from you? Otherwise, you're missing out on lots of opportunities because you're not making it easy for them to just inch their way towards you.
As the industry and all industries are changing so dramatically, I think that, buyers are afraid of the process, and that's a real thing. They're overwhelmed, they're shutting down as a result. And if we don't have that kind of intermediary where there's a nonprofit that's got trusted, credibility there that kind of bridges that gap, I think we can lose a lot of people that will never enter homeownership, or even, feel comfortable going through some of those financial lessons. as a result. If we do have that trusted intermediary there, then we can expand the pool of buyers through expanding housing professionals that are doing the work and care about leading with education. So I'm really excited about where we are, and we could not do this without any of you on this call. I mean, Deborah, Todd, Dave have donated time, money, resources, and support. And all of our ambassadors, we are 36 ambassadors shy of getting to full sustainability through our ambassador program. So I'm really excited about getting to that point and being able to scale our education and trust at a level that really creates transformation in the industry.
Well, one of the things I love about what we're doing at First Home IQ, it's not only the tools that we're equipping the industry with, but it's the community of like-minded, super passionate, both mission-driven and highly ambitious mortgage advisors. So I would just encourage anybody, check this out. Kristin gave you links as to where you can sign up. I'll share. Well, I don't need to share. Well, did we share the link in chat, Kristin? We'll get a link shared in chat. And if you're watching this on a podcast, go to firsthomeiq.com.
Yeah, and there's a lot of free resources out there. So if you're not ready to be an ambassador yet, first of all, I would encourage you to go to firsthomeiq.com/ambassador and just get some of the free resources that have been created by this ambassador community that are about building trust. And it will also give you a little preview into what the ambassador network looks like. But also we have, I'm super excited. We relaunched website, the Learn consumer resources, the ambassador pages, and also this Teach page, which on its own was a really fun launch. And so if you go to teach.firsthomeiq.com, you can explore there. There's an onboarding process that kind of teaches you about First Home IQ, gives you a lot of resources there. So that's awesome. You can learn about our impact masterminds we do every month. And there's a whole impact plan where it gives you resources like our games, playing, Jeopardy with a group if you did a live event or a webinar or a would you rather game. We have some free resources in our presentation library. We have one of our Money Matters 101 in Spanish and English, and other, teacher, educator resources, as well as some social media content. So dig around in there. If you scroll all the way down, you'll see, what the community has built together, and then just, find ways to participate, whether or not you're an ambassador. We just want you in the community and leveraging some of those resources to build trust and lead with education.
Yeah,
Also, we need ambassadors in every state.
I know.
There's a few that have no ambassadors in them, right?
Well, that's good to know. I got some people in those states, Todd. I'm going to push on it.
Give them a push. And then Michael, thank you for the comment. He called this out as an incubation piece. And I really like that term, because the incubation time that people go from I'm thinking about buying to I'm buying, it's never been longer. There's never been actually more content and resources, which is creating that overwhelm and that confusion. So what Kristin and her team have done is organize it super thoughtfully so that people have access to, foundational financial literacy training, but they have it in the context of achieving home ownership younger and faster. So thanks for jumping in, Michael. If anybody has any questions, we are right about halftime, and we're moving into the second half of the year. So it's not too late to get on this wagon. You were going to say something, Kristin?
I forgot. I got distracted by sports and realizing it's mid-August. But I was going to say,
she was going to say not every team's going to win the fourth quarter because, Deborah cheers for the Cowboys.
Wow.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm a Bronco fan. How many games did the Broncos win in the fourth quarter last year? It was crazy.
Like all of them.
Yeah. How many did did Dallas win in the fourth quarter? Or it's probably easier to count how many they lost in the fourth quarter. But anyway,
I can't even comment. I really am speechless because there's nothing I can say to that.
Think about that, where we are in the year. Deborah said, here we are, we're already midway through August, right? So whether you're listening to this in mid-August or now you pick this up and later in the year, the bottom line is we're at a point where, it's kind of like separation season, right? We came through this summer. A lot of people have kids going back to school, but those of you who've been consistent, you've got a head start on everyone else. And then keep in mind, there's still a lot of people who are already thinking it's Halloween and that they're going to hang up for the year. I do think it's a great time as a loan officer to dig in. And I think, the reason that I would look at the free resources that First Home IQ has for you is because you do need some way to separate yourself from everyone else as we kind of think through, in this, how do we add the value? And going back to Kristin's framework, right? I mean, ultimately in the end, I think you've got a lot of things in there that'll help you establish that with your clients.
I mean, we are not the holders of all of the knowledge anymore, and experts certainly are not the holders of the information the way that they used to be. And while it's important to be an expert, and your experience of seeing a lot of clients and people in similar situations is really important, the buyer now really needs to feel like they are working with that information as well, so that they can show up as a collaborator. So I think that that's a piece that is important to recognize, and in how everything is changing. And as I've thought about how I show up in doctor's appointments, like the doctor, no matter how incredible of an expert they are not going to be someone who lives in my body 24/7. I have 15 minutes with them. And that's, if I'm lucky. And same thing with the consultation. In those 15 minutes, you can cover a lot of ground, but that you're not living in that person's personal experience. You're probably not pulling out this deep-seated fear that they may not have even fully brought conscious to themselves, that if they buy a home, it means they're giving up on a partner, or things like that. That really, if they are able to, the consumer is able to play around with numbers and build some confidence to show up in those meetings as a collaborator, I think that changes the game in how, whether someone decides to move forward or not.
Kristin, I'm the psycho that will record the doctor using Otter and then upload it all into AI and ask it to explain it to me, and then also verify if it's correct or not.
Oh, me too. Yeah, for sure. I'm
you guys,
actually, yeah. The
do you
amount
guys,
of
oh, really?
debriefing, yeah, because I'll prepare, because I don't want to be screwed
Yeah.
over by a doctor. Like, it's just such a good comparison for me. But yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious, Todd and Dave, are you guys like, is this gender or
Oh
age
no,
related?
I got a project in Claude on personal health that I put every lab report into.
Yeah.
I record conversations, put them in there and ask it questions. And whenever my wife says, "Oh, you should start doing this," I'm like,
Yeah.
this is what Kelly thinks I should do. What should I do? Now tell me tactfully how to communicate back to her that I'm not going to do that.
I think Claude should know that Kelly's your wife, and you should always listen to her. But I mean,
Well, I always listen to her.
I think as we're talking through this, we all get mad because the clients talk to Claude or Chat or Perplexity about the mortgage process. And, Philip Jones always says, hey, if there's an elephant in the room, actually jump on the elephant and ride it into the room. And so this comes back to when we interviewed Jeremy Forsey a few weeks ago, and he says, hey, tell me the story. The whole story is what he's asking clients up front in their process. And so I think all you have to do is say, awesome, hey, can you just let me know what research have you done up to this point, whether with other humans or AI, right? There's a way for you just to ask up front and have them tell you where they're at and embrace it, because you're doing it yourself. And so why not do the same thing? Awesome. Yep, I'm doing the same thing. Obviously, you're probably not doing it about first-time home buying, but maybe you should.
Yeah.
So I want to share something and that is what we've discovered. Like, we have Mortgage Coach now that has an AI bot into it. And then we find there's a cohort of loan officers where when they deliver that link, it's like 5.6% on average. And then we have a cohort of loan officers that when they give that report, it's like 16. So, I mean, the difference between 16 and the average 1 to 3% is 10x. And you know what the difference is that those loan officers are doing? It's about 15 seconds. The loan officers that are giving Mortgage Coach and they're spending 15 to 30 seconds, like, oh, and you can click here and check this out. And oh, there's AI in it. And if you want to ask it questions like, what's the best option if I'm going to live in the home for 3 years? The loan officers that are doing that are getting 10x. And I want you guys to think about the 10x, the loan officer's in the loop. The loan officer has trained that consumer to, like, they're going to use AI with me or without me. 10x more of those consumers are getting that value. And the same thing applies, I guarantee, with Kristin's, website. We're going to have a lot of loan officers that have it. We're going to have some loan officers that say the right thing to every person who's renting that they talk to. And they're going to have a different experience where they're adding value. They're going to be a difference in which ones are using it on social media. in thoughtful, best practices way, powered by Plug and Play, Deborah Byrd, which, by the way, Deborah, we need your help at creating some best practices on how to actually share this website on social. But it's amazing, guys, that your words matter more than ever, even though there's more automation than ever.
Well, I wrote down, don't be a lagger. I don't want to be in that group that you
You
label.
could never be a laggard. You don't even know how to do it.
Kristin, but I am curious, do you guys have any of your ambassadors that are leveraging TikTok lives with live Q&As or credit questions, anything with home buying or even this website that you know of?
I'm sure we do, but I don't know who is doing that. So that's a
Hmm.
good question to put out there. We should have you
I'll send
back.
you a few names and we
Okay.
definitely need to see if they're an ambassador already. But if you're not leveraging TikTok Live to do educational,
Deborah, what is a
like,
TikTok live for those of us who don't spend any time on TikTok?
okay, so for the boomers tuning in, you guys know what Facebook Live is. It's very similar to that, but it's on TikTok. You
So
can ask live questions like right there, and it feels like a safe place where, you're not going to be judged. It's not like you necessarily know that person, but it is where there's a lot of attention and people go there not just to be entertained, but also to learn. I have a shopping problem on there because when they do TikTok lives, they try on the clothes, they talk about how it feels and like all the things that you can't get if you're just looking at it online or maybe even in a store if you don't have time to try it on, which they never have all the sizes, which is super.
Gary Vee's been obviously ahead of the curve for a decade on what's working out there, and he's been talking about live selling for quite a while now. And so I've jumped on a couple of things that he's doing in live selling. I've got some friends who are really into the sports card world, and they're into live selling, and they're talking about it. So the fact that Deborah Bird's talking about it for mortgages tells me that I may be behind. That look at that, we go every direction here, and that was a really good direction actually. So yeah, love that. If you are someone who wakes up and works out early, go check out Bird. I'm kind of fired up to check it out, Dave. I think I've seen Jack, I've watched him working out for long enough now and talking about it, so I'm glad he's finally got it out and rolling. I don't know where to go
So
from here. Go
I
ahead,
have a
Kristin.
thought. Yeah, we had been talking a little bit about how AI is transforming everything, and I think that we actually one of the authors that was at this philosophy festival talked about how we are at this pivotal moment between like when Blockbuster then became streaming. There was that in between time where we ordered, DVDs from Netflix or whatever, and it was like we started having more control and more choice but we weren't quite streaming yet. And Dave, you had said that you were asking people what was 2030 going to be like. I'm curious what kinds of answers you've gotten so far and how maybe that plays into where consumers are today, showing up in this kind of in-between moment.
But, here were some really common bullet points. They're going to be great leaders of teams, and those teams are a combination of other human beings and agents, AI agents, and they're really good at doing that. So many speakers talked about just the widening of the gap between people that are struggling and doing really low volume and kind of the rise in, I heard multiple people, the rise of the million or the $1 billion loan officer. I think they might be like exaggerating to make a point. Is it possible that an individual loan officer can do $1 billion? I mean, while Sean Benoshian has done it, I mean, he's not an individual loan officer. He's got a lot of people on his team. And then everybody, it was unanimous. They're not a loan officer. I mean, a lot of the transactional work of a loan officer is being automated. They're a connector. They're a relationship manager. They are someone that is able to communicate and build trust. And they are truly someone that's doing more than just helping build a relationship to close a transaction. They're building a lifelong relationship to help people based on their goals, based off their beliefs, based off of their resources to achieve financial success. And they're connecting all those. So there's more, but I think no one was talking about or leaning into AI completely replacing loan officers. Although there will be some types of loans like HELOCs, like rate and term refis that will be highly automated and potentially pretty much autonomous. by 2030, in most people's opinion.
What about you, Deborah? You were there at the AI Summit. What were your takeaways?
I didn't hear this, but I have yet to respond to Dave just yet, but I really feel like in 2030, when you look at the landscape of, like, I always start with, where is the market going to be? What does housing look like? What does the consumer look like? And we're going to have more aged individuals. We're going to have, the millennials that are moving up, then your Gen Zers are going to be close to 33 years of age. So lots of different demographics, but I would be building my local ecosystem and finding my board of like partners that's locally like advisors that create community and believe in education and leverage social media and building that all around life transition moments. So it's like, what are the moments that trigger, and it could be first time home buyer or those who are moving up or moving down, but that's where my focus would be, is more on the moments that trigger the event so that you can be first to consumer and be that source that they learn from. But then it's, the strategy will become, how do you become the most known, trusted, but yet also chosen when it matters most, which means you have to be memorable because the incubation process is longer. And although many of you listening could have been on social even this morning and you could have even liked something, but you probably can't tell me the name of that account of the person that you liked it on. So you have to consistently show up with your own unique voice. Doesn't mean to just be different, but are you memorable?
And Deborah did something that I want to make sure people got, and this will also be in the newsletter. They are no doubt an expert in helping first-time home buyers. Like when you look at, as technology evolves, what is most likely to be as close to autonomous as possible? It's a rate and term refi and a HELOC. And you look at what is least likely to still need a human, and it's a first-time home buyer. And then it's also the non-QM products. Not that we want to use those terms, but creative financing, buy before you sell. The more that consumer has a problem to solve, that they can't just throw into AI and solve it. They can't just get it from a robot, loan officer. Those two particular product segments.
And at least right now, it feels like people are, I mean, we've been seeing this trend since forever, since at least the television, but of people getting more and more isolated in their media kind of compounds. I think people are looking for connection, and you're seeing this in all kinds of different areas. Like even in Echo Park where I live, there's more pop-ups of run clubs and things where people are connecting in person. And I think that this creates an opportunity, as Deborah was saying, for you to look for areas where you can step in and show up in person, or at least in a kind of community, whether it be digital or in person, and look for those people who are already trusted, who are already building those connections. I think that at least right now, that is a really interesting place to be, where you build trust and you are also creating opportunity for more business.
Todd, you know who that reminds me of is Eric Daniels.
Yeah, that was a great interview. He talked about the communities that he has built and really just being his authentic self, which I think is, kind of where it really starts. But he's essentially built communities within his community of allowing people to come together in a safe space, which is, for him, it's in his garage, where literally you can bring your motorcycle over and work on it in his garage. He's got all sorts of different gatherings with folks where he's just creating community. And I think that is, 1,000%. When I hear you talk about the run clubs and stuff like that, Chris, and I see that around where I live all the time, there's like 3 different ones. One of them, some of them are hooked to some of the different shoe brand stores that are on the street nearby me, but there's one that's like 300 people that are out running on a Wednesday afternoon. I'm like, I'm still working. Literally, they stop traffic. There's so many of them. There's a bike club where they all have bright lights on their bikes, and there's kids and, booming music. And, they meet at right when the sun goes down on Sundays, and they all ride. And I see them, they come through my neighborhood, and I could hear them coming through. And I'm like, these are fun communities I should be part of. So
Apparently there's a flaxseed community. Not sure if there's any patterns of that community, but Kristin, didn't you say you just recently went to a flaxseed conference or like?
That was
That was philosophy.
Philosophy.
Oh, philosophy. You
Philosophy.
said
I'm
philosophy.
like
No,
I'm like
totally
Where did
Deborah
that
brilliant.
come
Byrd.
from?
What is she
Deborah is
like?
going to start that.
We went from like
That
this
is
run
so
club party, like I could
It was
totally
like,
well, she
visualize
said
it,
Hilton. I'm like, you
I
would
was
to
like,
love it.
philosophy.
Philosophy. Oh, I would
Philosophy.
love.
You would
it
like
was a
it.
philosophy festival. If it was just a philosophy conference or a meetup, but the fact that it was a festival is what really got me excited about it.
Yeah, there was camping, there's music there. Yeah, it was tents everywhere in the middle of nowhere in Wales. It was fun and hilarious.
I'm so glad I clarified. Okay,
Me too.
before we end, I'm curious, and I know you were going to touch on this a little bit in your next article, I believe, but are there common things you see where advisors get it wrong when it comes to building trust with this demographic or first-time home buyers? Like the top three things that we think is maybe guidance and we think is building trust, but it is like cringe-worthy.
Yes. One is accidentally creating overwhelm. So you just give them tons of information and then they're like, it's too much to process. Your brain actually shuts down. There's research showing it drops 13 percentage points when you're going through financial information. And so there's a real, like the overwhelm threshold is just so much lower for anything finance and homeownership related. So we have to think like, how do we not talk? And then that brings me to number two is being condescending. So you don't want to be condescending. You don't want to be patronizing, but you do want to very carefully share information and not gatekeep that information. So
What are
it's,
some examples
click
of that we think
click for
maybe
more
we
type of thing. Oh,
uh,
it's like going on and on about all the different products. Or and instead of saying, hey, there's a lot of different alternative products out there. Like, have you heard about people house hacking? Have you heard about people sharing, I don't know, things that are using plain language versus, I know Dave said we wouldn't use the term non-QM, but definitely don't use that word. So then the other, and that would be probably number three, is just using industry jargon that creates that kind of overwhelm. But I'm sure there's a ton of other examples I'll think about and include in that article. Curious what others would say here on this call. And before we leave, I do want to have a financial awareness day tip before we go.
Oh, I like that. Let's like a hook. We'll hold people to the end on that one.
So any other thoughts on things that people are doing that are making mistakes around creating that?
I think you nailed it. It's the curse of knowledge, right? And it's the fact that we all do this. And so we just don't think about the fact. I always go back to when my wife first started working with me. My wife is a non-practicing attorney, super smart, and our desks were across from each other in our office. And she would give me that sign where she's making a cross, like, cut off your neck kind of thing. And I'd be like, well, there's a floor of resistance and where the candlestick chart is. I was explaining rates to people. And she's like, no one cares. Like, actually put it into terms of, gosh, you know what, here's what's going on in a really basic level of rates. And so I've been recording my video 2 minutes with Todd that I've been sending out because I was forcing my people in my group coaching that I was doing earlier this year into sending out a weekly video. And so I've kept the habit going to my 2 minutes with Todd. And I'm literally like, hey, if you see gas prices going up, then rates are going up. And if you see gas prices coming down, rates are coming down. I tried to give them a analogy that was in their real world that they're seeing every day when they're driving down the street so that they could sort of understand what might be going on in our world of interest rates.
One thing I was going to add to that is just a lack of empathy of like what's really going on in the world of some of the younger demographics where they feel like they've done everything that they were supposed to do. They've gone to college like they were told to do to be successful. They have lots of student loan debt. The inflation's kicking their ass. Cost of living has increased. They've had to put things on credit card. And it's like this feeling of like, I don't know how I'm ever going to save for a down payment when also the average cost of a home, like purchase prices increase. So that down payment amount has increased. And so anything that you can do to help bridge that gap of like, do you have resources of how to get out of debt or maybe different strategies with the student loan programs and issues, and maybe not everyone needs to go to college, but it's just having empathy around their situation where it's not as easy as it was, say, in 1970 when everyone is trying to label this group as just lazy. There's also this just overwhelming feeling and like this huge amount of anxiety of like, how am I going to make it?
Yeah, I love that. And that's part of that, creating that safety. It's helping, it's personalized strategies. And we are absolutely in the world where you're not going to be valuable unless you are strategizing with them, no matter where they are. I think we have this Words Matter guide on our website, which is also part of that ambassador welcome kit. It talks about how you want to always lead with, I'll create a homeownership plan for everyone, but it's for you specifically. Whether you're thinking you'll buy a home in 5 years or in a few months, I think most people that think they're years away are actually a lot closer than they realize.
I interviewed a top producer that I think will hit next week, but he had a client that had like $200,000 in savings, and it'd been 6 months since they started talking to the realtor, highly qualified. But because they had that 200,000, and by the way, the market's doing really well and they're seeing it grow, and they were feeling like they just couldn't visualize, like, you know what, I could just put 40 of it down on my home. And then, now they have 150 invested, and they have a home that they were able to leverage, and they can see their net worth. Boom. They literally went from driving their realtor crazy. I think they were on their second loan officer, who happened to be a mortgage coach. And again, this will all be on LinkedIn and YouTube next week. But there's lots of people like that qualify, that they just need a guide to help them.
Yeah,
Kristin,
absolutely.
you've been amazing. Oh, go ahead. You got
Okay,
another
wait,
one.
last thing. So Financial Awareness Day, we have a really cool little way of making the announcement around our relaunch and all of the consumer resources and all of that. So if you go to teach.firsthomeiq.com, there is an announce banner at the top. And if you click on that, there's a whole thing. If you're an ambassador, it will auto-populate with your headshot and all that kind of stuff if you're logged in. If you are not an ambassador, you can still promote the learn.firsthomeiq.com free consumer resources. Helps you build credibility. It's an awesome tool. Add in your why for, why you're part of this mission. And as a reminder, this is your nonprofit. This is the industry's nonprofit. So share why you're involved, and we'll put that on our wall to inspire others. And then in here, it will populate, or you can upload your headshot. You can adjust it, all kinds of stuff. You can play around with different options for that, put together a story. And then there's scripting too. So social post, email, video script, text, and it will incorporate your why into that. So anyway, very easy to share, and please help us get the word out. We're so excited about this launch. And again, this is, I think, a really pivotal way of helping to expand homeownership in our industry.
And Deborah, we need to get all your customers using that bad boy.
I mean, apparently, this is fantastic.
Yeah,
Too
that was
many try to
awesome.
create it on their own, and you guys have done that for them. So I love it.
All right,
All right, thank you so much.
Let's wrap this one up. Final thoughts, Deborah.
It's National Financial Awareness Day, and why not share your financial truth on the largest digital classroom and network like social media? So pick one truth and be courageous and bold enough to share it, because there's people who need to hear it.
Dave.
So spend 3 to 5 minutes less time scrolling on Instagram today, and do what Kristin just told you. Go through that process, make a post. Remember, guys, this is your nonprofit that's here to help bring more first-time home buyers into the market.
All right, Kristin, any last words?
No, just share your why and your post. First, teach.firsthomeiq.com.
Well, and I love it. Thank you so much, Chris, and thanks everyone for listening. For me, every day is Financial Awareness Day. That's the industry that we're in. So whether you're listening to this on the day it was recorded and it was actually Financial Awareness Day, or a different day, do what Kristin just said to do. I love that little nugget we saved for the end. Thank you all for being part of the Loan Officer Mastermind, and we will see you next week.